the ladies call me, oh God, but you can call me Fat Larry with a F-A-T, cause I know I got a weight problem, I just don't give a
VTM Bloodlines is a 2004 action role-playing video game developed by Troika Games and published by Activision. Set in White Wolf Publishing's World of Darkness, the game is based on the TTRPG Vampire the Masquerade and follows a human who's killed and revived as a fledgling vampire. The game depicts the fledgling's journey through early 21st century LA to uncover the truth behind a recently discovered relic that heralds the end times, Gehenna. The game itself is for VTM what Baldur's Gate was for D&D, a real expansion from role-playing in a dark basement with your friends to role-playing alone in a dark room full of leather. Before we dive into the game and its story, I think it's worth paying some lip service to the World of Darkness, the game it's adapted from. It's quite clear from my previous videos I'm a massive fan of White Wolf's work. I've reviewed a few of their visual novels, probably not the most popular ones in the series. But VTM, Vampire the Masquerade, is a tabletop RPG for the uninitiated. Think of it as a D&D type game. There's been several different versions of it as a whole, and it's this big spider's web mess of tracking all the chronologies. There's two different universes to start, World of Darkness and Chronicles of Darkness, both with their own lore, and World of Darkness had some quite antiquated rules and themes. Chronicles of Darkness had a god machine with robot angels pulling strings behind the scenes. Chronicles is the V2, and we're not going to concern ourselves with it in this video, it's got no bearing. The World of Darkness is filled with supernatural creatures, each within a shared setting. In most cases, they don't interact too much as their power scales a bit differently. A group of humans could take out one vampire quite easily, but if this same group went after a werewolf, they wouldn't physically be able to comprehend its war form. Likewise, mages can bend time and space, and vampires suck drinks out of sweaty glasses, and sometimes eat people. I love this setting, and I love this game. The setting as a whole is dark, gothic punk, and it's an interpretation of the real world with supernatural creatures existing in secrecy, lest humanity would turn on them and burn them from their nests. Instead of turrets on gothic castles, we have huge skyscrapers draped in darkness with gargoyles quite literally staring down at you. The vampires themselves live behind the shadows and pull strings, forming a shadow society split into various sects. The Camarilla, who enforce strict traditions and govern vampires with princes and primogen, the Anarchs, who are just Camarilla with less strict hierarchy, and typically much younger members, and the Sabbat, who are religious zealots embracing their monstrous nature, living in constant fear their ancestors will wake up and eat the world. It's heavily theorised that Guillermo del Toro took a lot of ideas from this setting for the Blade films, and they're a very good analogue if you just want to see what it's about. Vampires in this setting originate from God cursing Cain for killing Abel. Forced to live forever, his progeny then split into various clans, each with a wide range of banes and boons. Nosferatu look like Nosferatu, but can turn invisible to offset this. Ventrua Regal can force those with weaker wills than themselves by simply commanding them, but they make themselves sick if they drink outside of their tastes. Think of clans like classes from a classical RPG. Each clan traces back to an individual who founded it, a childer of Cain, and if any of those vampires woke up again, it would be an apocalyptic scenario in a variety of different ways. Within the game, you choose your clan, and this would give you a variety of optional powers, a bane of some description, and we then plot out points on a character sheet. Within the Camarilla, if one was to sire a new vampire, they have to seek the permission of the prince of their region. If someone fails to do this, the price is steep, and that's where we'll start this game. I'll expand on story points and vampire trivia as we go, so expect spoilers as we dive in. I'm also using the Plus patch, which I'd recommend if you're playing this on modern hardware. It fixes a lot of things and even adds some cut content, including an additional ending.
Which leads to the fate of the ill-begotten progeny.
The game opens up after a night of steamy passion. Our sire goes to show us something, draining us of blood and topping us up with theirs. We turn into a kindred. It's what they call a vampire in this setting. I chose Toreador as my clan for this run, and I didn't have to buy it as a DLC. Cough cough, Bloodlines 2. I know they repealed that recently, but back to the game. Before we can even discuss our new state of being, we're ambushed. The prince of these lands calls an Elysium, and he details the problem at hand to other kindred of LA who've arrived. You'll see some colourful characters in the crowd. He plans to execute our sire as we've broken one of the traditions of the Camarilla and threatened the secrecy of this society. She's chopped and turns to ash. As we've no sire, It's clear that the prince is about to get us chopped too, but outcry from the crowd leads him to take a different track.
All I'm saying is that he better not do it.
If Mr. Rodriguez would let me finish, I have decided to let this kindred live.
Will be allowed to live, instructed in their ways, and of course put on a dog leash for the prince for giving us such a gift. This is the vampire version of the D&D You're Adventurers in a Tavern start. We're going to be paying off our life debt to this prince for the rest of our unlife, and he will give us tasks to do. Firstly, he wants us to go to Santa Monica to meet with one of his familiars, Mercurio, who will give us further instructions. As we stumble out of the grand concert hall, none of these instructions or guidance we were promised are to be seen. Luckily, we make a new friend in the alley beside us. Smiling Jack here is possibly the kindest kindred in the game, and he's offering to run us through a tutorial. You can skip this, but you'll miss out on both guidance and some introduction to a few new concepts.
It's probably a lot for you to take in, so why don't you let me show you the ropes? What do you say?
Firstly, blood to vampires is more addictive than most hardcore drugs, and they crave that stuff. It physically animates them. In this game, the bluer the blood, the better it is for you, but on the tabletop it's pretty much all the same. Launch yourself at this weirdo hanging out down the alleys. A bite from most vampires is so pleasurable they won't put up a real fight while it's going on. Just make sure not to kill them while doing it if they're an innocent, or it's bad for your soul, literally lessening your grip on your humanity. Vampires are essentially immortal in this setting, besides sunlight, fire and supernatural weapons being harder to heal from. If you're staked, you're paralysed, and enough blunt trauma will probably take you out. Most wounds you'll heal from given enough blood and time, but before Jack can explain more, we hear local street music playing from the hood around us.
Okay now. The fuck is this?
And we navigate through your basic movement, hacking and lockpicking. The Sabbat are attacking us here, likely targeting the Elysium that just took place. Jack sums them up with as much info as we need right now.
Oh, it's a Sabbat raid. Sabbat? They're, Christ, I was hoping to spare you this shit till later. The Sabbat, you know, they're mostly mindless, bloodthirsty assholes. That's all you need to know for now, alright?
We'll expand on them later, but they are typically the yin to the civilized vampires' yang. They're a lot more nuanced than that in the lore, but for here, just think of them as the evil dudes. The sheriff we see makes short work of them. He's the prince's lawbringer, and in most settings the sheriff is one of the most powerful combatants around. The Sabbat here aren't any of their heavy hitters. In fact, you could assume most of the ones attacking were sired the same night as us, shovelheads as they're called in the lore. Shock troops turned into vamps and thrown at the closest enemy while they're still confused and raged out. We sneak out of this mess, seeing about dialogue and persuasion. The graphic here shows it better than I can explain. Level your stats, have unique clan abilities, and you'll get different options. When we escape, Jack tells us to meet him at the last round, a bar downtown where he'll fill us in on the real politics of the domain. But for now, tutorial over as we enter our haven in Santa Monica and begin the prince's dirty work. Our haven is but a small apartment. There's blood in the fridge and a laptop we can sign into. It's 2004, and so you can expect the world to look like an MTV show at this point. If you've got the lockpicking, you can sneak into your neighbour's apartments, but you won't find too much here. Exiting out, we can feed on a nearby hobo, and then take a lovely hammy cutscene walk into the streets. Spotting the guy we're meant to meet crawling on his last legs. You're free to explore the streets here, and there's a few people you can talk to. Ladies of the night you can pay to lure around corners, a rather posh man who's broken his car. If you seduce him, he has such a silly line.
I've suddenly got the urge to walk down that dark and foreboding alley over there. Care to join me?
If you're playing an alternate clan, there might be some differences. The most drastic are if you play as a Nosferatu. You're a walking masquerade breach, and if people see you, they'll scream and police will shoot at you. I harshly recommend they're not your first playthrough. You will spend a lot of time crawling through the sewers, and won't be able to access the game as easily as some of the other characters. You don't miss out on much content, but you are crawling through the sewers for a lot of it. Mercurio went to go and buy some astrolite, an explosive agent, and the crack dealers he went to buy it from filled him full of holes. Our first main quest is to go and retrieve this astrolite from the dealers, either by fun or by force. Now this game is exceptionally open. There's a variety of different characters and areas you can sculpt through in Santa Monica looking for side quests. I'll raise a few at a time whilst trying to stick to the main story here, otherwise I'll just get derailed entirely. Outside of a nearby hospital, we'll encounter a ghoul, a human bound to a vampire by drinking their blood. He's a bit loose-lipped and seems to know what a vampire looks like just by spotting them. This is Nox, and we'll meet his master later. Inside the hospital, you can find the blood bank in the basement, or a dying woman inside the ground floor. Despite this being our first night, we're fast learners, and you can regain some humanity by saving Heather here, unknowingly making her into your ghoul if you weren't paying attention to Nox. The crack dealers are near the beach, and when we head out, we see a gaggle of Finnbloods, vampires of a generation much higher than ours whose vampirism hasn't manifested as strongly. They're considered a sign of the apocalypse by some, and are treated as second-class citizens at best, or something to be killed on sight at worst. One of the quests is reuniting this surfer Finnblood with his sire who's gone missing. She's held within the blood bank, you'll find out later. One of the Finnbloods here has some sort of precognition, but it's unrefined. She can tell our fortune but not provide any context.
No.
We're going to China, we'll chase something apocalyptic for the prince, and a killer is going to travel to Hollywood and then back here. Put a pin in those, go check out the murder scene on the pier to get a plot thread that will last for 3 out of 4 areas in the game. This is the killer that was being theorised about. And let's go deal with some dealers. Finally, I promise this time. On approach, one's hitting the pipe, and because we're a Toreador with social stats, we can just talk our way past him. If we were a Nosferatu, he'd ward us off and we'd have to sneak in or shoot our way in. Pretty boy Toreador finds the chemist who shot Mercurio, and he's got some harsh words.
I will fuck you and your whole family, including that squirrel in your front yard.
When we bring up Mercurio, he and the rest of the gang will try and kill us. The combat in this game is a bit hammy, especially in the early game. Guns are inaccurate until you level up your range stat, and the melee is made up of a few different combo swings, but there's no visual indicator on if your opponents are near death, but you can also feed on them in combat and they don't regenerate, so there's that. The last act of this game gets exponentially combat heavy, and it's often tarred as many's least favourite sections. I can't say I love the combat, but some powers do make it much more fun. Grab the astrolite and head to Mercurio. The prince wanted the bombs to attack a Sabbat-infested warehouse. Unfortunately, if we want to get to the warehouse, we need to find a Nosferatu named Bertram Tongue. But the Baron of this region, Therese Vorman, has him on the run, so we'll need to deal with her and her twin sister before we can advance the prince's goals. It's at this point you could do some digging on the Finnblood sire, or look into a local bail bondsman's missing bounty hunter. For instance, he went missing after speaking with a prosthetics producer named Gimbal.
Stanley Gimbal.
We can go to Gimbal's place and he's, well, a bit unhinged. He wanted some reference pics from this bounty hunter, and as we dig through his place of work, we'll see he's got a bit of a fetish for body parts. And it's like crawling through the Manson place until you eventually find the bounty hunter missing a few digits. We have to fight Gimbal, who uses a prosthetic arm, which you can take from him, and it makes a funny tool for smacking people with. The Finnblood sire has been kidnapped by the blood bank, and freeing her will get them pissed with you.
Oh, sweet mother of God!
You can actually blackmail her after watching her eat a guy if you're that way inclined. This game has a wealth of side quests as previously mentioned, and so we're going to get back to the main plot unfortunately. Therese is not the first Vorman sister we meet. Their domain is that of the Asylum nightclub. Her twin sister Jeanette is clearly a Malkavian by her whole demeanour and choice of words. She's exceptionally flirtatious, childish and impulsive.
We get turned on, there's bound to be flames.
When we head upstairs, we can hear her and her sister arguing, and Jeanette is the antithesis of this, likely a Ventru from how she's presented. She's a femme fatale, CEO-looking chick, and I suppose you need that sort of edge to be a baron, protecting your domain from other would-be rulers. She tells us that Bertram Tongue had ran off of his own accord. He'd been spending a bit too much time with her sister and meddling about with her affairs, but obviously he got wind this was winding her up. We need her to officially cool off the feud before we can meet the guy, and this means doing a quest for her. She's recently purchased the Ocean House Hotel, and it's been possessed by a ghost. She wants us to crawl through the sewers like a rat, go into the hotel, and exorcise the place by getting her one of the ghost's possessions. Therese and Jeanette are fun. The Ocean House is one of the more well-known quests in this game, and why wouldn't it be? What a cool setup. A vampire crawling through a haunted house facing off against a ghost. It once was and is still legitimately creepy at points. When you arrive outside, the music is dark and foreboding. And as you go into a worker's trailer to get a key for the place, a digger drives itself towards us, but there's no driver. Ooh. Lights blow themselves out as we enter, and chandeliers drop in front of us. It's a very spooky setting, even for a not so spooky game. Trying to head upstairs has you crashing into a basement, and as you go to turn the power on, you see this ghost woman running about various dark corridors. Running in fear of something scarier than us. The hotel had burned down, at least part of it a long time ago. We realise all too soon that the woman who we've seen running around isn't the ghost of issue. There's another spirit, a much darker one, who likely killed her and wants to kill us too. Diaries show a massacre took place here, and one scene in the kitchen can be especially spooky, as you just hear a whisper before pans fly everywhere.
He's coming.
In fact, the ghost whispers in your ear a fair amount as you traverse the hotel. It's unnerving. Eventually, spectral fire starts to consume the place as we run through the halls. They're now quite literally deadly to us. Eventually, we grab the ghost amulet and head back out. Good quest. Sip from your blood doll and head back up to Therese. Unfortunately, only her twin is here. We can flirt with her and there's a fade to black screen if you flirt enough. Our drive doesn't really work like that anymore, but still. Hand her the pendant and she's no clue where her sister is. A local gallery event has been set up by another kindred though, trying to claw into Therese's domain, and we're tasked with slashing up paintings and ruining it. After all, what else would Therese want us to do, right? Talk your way past Officer Chunk and sneak into the museum. The paintings here all reflect the kindred creation story, the one of Cain being cursed and meeting Lilith, and you need to slice them in chronological order. It's a slight puzzle. Then a blood guardian will pop out, you need to defeat it. Clearly these are magical paintings. Stealing the charity box here made my humanity drop, and you can see one of the negative sides of that as I went back to the asylum. The lower your humanity, the more likely you are to frenzy and launch yourself at the nearest beating heart. It's never a good idea to relinquish all control to the beast. In a tabletop setting, your GM would take over what you're doing. In the game, you just AI path to the nearest thing. You do get some buffs for being frenzied, but if you frenzy at the wrong time, well, the police are going to be chasing you down. You might even break the Masquerade or lose more humanity. Who knows? Now, go back to the asylum and Therese isn't happy at all. Jeanette threw the pendant into the Pacific, so the ghost is permanently at the hotel, and someone slashed up her art gallery. We don't tell her that was us. The two sisters are fighting, and to quell the feud, we need to head to the Surfside Diner to meet Jeanette and make sure she'll actually go and talk to her sister. This turns out to be a setup by Therese, as when we walk in, we're set upon by a ton of armed thugs. Kindred are slimy, backstabby creatures indeed. Though I do think it's time to show Therese what happens when someone double crosses us. Head up the elevator in the asylum, fists balled, and oh! They're both Malkavians. Their clan Bane is suffering from a mental delusion, in this case split personality or DID or something similar. Malkavians on the whole are known as the Crazy Clan because of this. They also have a psychic link with all other Malkavians called the Madness Network, so it turns out there's only one of them this whole time. You can learn the source of their fighting was due to trauma relating with an assault by their father as kids. It's a bit yucky, and you can choose which one of them survives this little skirmish or persuade the two to squash their beef. Therese gives Jeanette more freedom in exchange for Jeanette not conspiring against her, and the two will work together to become better than the sum of their parts. It's a nice resolution. They tell us to stay quiet about their little split or they'll kill us, and tell us that Tongue is in a nearby oil tanker just down the street. The feud's been called off and we can finally get to blowing up that warehouse. You might think it's not very staying as a secret society, but there's two arguments against that. Either the world is so bleak just nobody cares, or those leeches in the darkness know how to grease palms and make people look the other way. Either way, we meet Tongue in his tanker. He looks severely repulsive. You can ask him a few questions about kindred culture, bits and pieces, but what we're really after is when he tells us it's not only the Sabbat at this warehouse, but they're human goons who are fully aware of kindred, so we've got a green light to go loud if we wish. We fade to black and enter the outskirts of the warehouse, seemingly escorted through the sewers. A lot of big main quests will essentially form big dungeons like this one, where you've got a main goal, blow the place up, and free reign on how you progress through. Stealth tends to be the most rewarding option, especially if you're not min-max for combat, but by all means charge in there if that's your gravy. The warehouse is abutting a few train lines, and we need to weave our way between them, eventually climbing our way out into the warehouse. Now, even though most enemies are utterly blind in this game, I ended up breaking stealth, filling these goons full of lead, and then I planted the astrolite under one of their desks. The warehouse isn't hiding anything supernatural besides Sabbat members that pour out of the woodwork when we try to make our escape. It's housing weapons they're using for their war on the Camarilla. Celerity, supernatural speed, is a Toreador discipline. It does make combat rather easy. You can dodge bullets and swing a lot faster than the people swinging at you. Once the bomb is set, really you don't have to kill anyone, simply running away works. When you do get across the train lines, a wolf will pounce down by the exit, transform into a key member of Kindred Society. Beckett, a historian who in the books narrates over various sections. He studies Kindred lore en masse, and for him to be here is indicative that something big is going to go down soon. He asks us if we felt anything strange at all in recent nights, weirdly telling him about the Vorman sisters, the Finnbloods, and the wraith we encountered at the hotel. Heading home, Tung tells you what I just did. It's at this point we can hop into a taxi to enter our next hub area, downtown. I know that was a whistle-stop tour of Act 1, but key things it introduces are that vampires are real and run everything. They're split into various clans and groups, and there's this natural hierarchy that's managed to form. The genesis story of the vamps, the glimpse into the three main ideologies, the Camis, Anarchs and Sabbat. All of this while you naturally explore, feel out your powers, this dark city. Santa Monica is likely one of my favourite sections in the game due to the charm it gives. It feels like I'm playing the tabletop game. My theatre of the mind is replaced by all these cool encounters across town, and it gets me so excited to dive into the rest of the game. There's a few hooks laid for later plot threads, a mass murderer. Will we meet Jack from the beginning? Do the Sabbat want revenge? Hell, why is Beckett here? It should be how you start your game. As we get out of the taxi, one of the Sabbat members sneaks up behind us in quite a funny fashion. They're about to have their fun with us when none other than impromptu leader of the Anarchs, Nines Rodriguez, appears, saving us for the second time now with suitable flair.
Good effort.
And telling us, just like Jack, to come to the last round and beat him for the reality of Kindred Society. Downtown really kicks off with us entering LaCroix's skyscraper and seeing that Chunk is now his receptionist. He buzzes the elevator and we head on up to see our prince. He's suitably impressed that we blew up his warehouse and saved him some face. He does interrupt us throughout the dialogue and really doesn't seem to care what we're saying. He asks us what do we think of doing some reconnaissance for him, and we say the only correct answer, yes sir.
Excellent. Were you by chance in the military at all? I was an officer myself, actually, in Napoleon's ranks.
Turns out he's a military man. A cargo ship recently towed into port had come in missing its crew, though the police haven't realised any information. Even the Nosferatu, who normally form the underground eyes and ears of the vampire world as info brokers, have no clue. The only interesting bit of cargo on board is an Ankaran sarcophagus. This raises the prince's heckles. He wants us to determine what happened to the crew and make sure it has nothing to do with that sarcophagus. We also can't be spotted by the police while we do this, or murder them all either. This mission's key for a few reasons. You can imagine the older a vampire is, the more powerful one becomes. In the same way, each generation to be sired is slightly more watered down than the rest. If an ancient Ankaran kindred is in that sarcophagus, it would have an apocalyptic level of power if it woke up. The prince can't officially acknowledge that he thinks kindred of that age still exist, the Camarilla look down on that, but that's definitely what he's thinking. He also asks us to look into the Anarchs, given one has just saved us. You might want to explore downtown a bit before you go about the main quest, as with Santa Monica there's some cool stuff. We can go and visit the Tremere Primogen, for instance. He left a note in our haven. Think of him as the spokesperson for his clan in the local government. The hallways inside of his domain are like a magical maze to actually get to him. He's also the regent for his chantry. If you're a Tremere player, you can actually get your own domain here as well. Tremere are essentially magical, though not as powerful as true mages, but can work enough blood magic to do literally whatever you could imagine, within certain limits. He tells us there's a blood plague breaking out and he believes the Anarch's responsible, so we've got 3 hooks now to go and visit them. Without getting too political, we head to the last round to see essentially the folks sticking it to the man. The Camarilla are actually new to California, they're an invading force once warded away by the Anarchs, so it's not like they're a new movement that's just been formed. They just have less powerful backing. Most of the kindred in the last round are of Clan Bruja, a naturally rebellious, combative type. We meet Jack first, he's happy to see us and tells us there might well be an ancient in that coffin.
That sarcophagus is bad news. Kindred around the globe have been going batshit since it was discovered.
It turns out the Camis deny their existence, which I've just said, and it gives the Anarchs and Sabat more in common. The Anarchs will just assume you're a usual Cami bootlicker until you prove yourself to them, and part of that is also uncovering what's going on with this plague. Nines gives us a rather unbiased retelling of the differences between Anarchs and Cam, and it will be at this point you might be contemplating which faction you'll be siding with going forward. There's multiple endings to this game after all. Other sites include finding some paranormal investigator YouTube types and helping feed them to a Nagaraja, who will trade us artifacts for magical artifacts later on. It's an exceptionally cool paranormal investigators trope that gets rug pulled to find out it's another vampire, and you just end up helping them. You might want to take a different route and meet the best shopkeeper in any game to date.
Player, what's the score? How they hang? Good evening and all that commotion. Welcome to Fat Larry's Trucker Mac, the only store for all your needs after 10 o'clock.
One of the Anarch's ghouls has also gone missing in all this plague business, and you can find their apartment. Go break in, go through their voicemail to find more leads. There's no quest markers in this game, just you versus where you think you're meant to go. I imagine some quests were a nightmare before there were proper guides for it too. You'll eventually uncover a cult all around spreading disease similar to a Nurgle cult, and by following leads and interrogating the homeless, you'll come face to face with one of their bishops, Father Kanker. I believe they're meant to be emulating something close to a clan known as Barley here, worshipping demons and the like, but you don't really see that playing out in the game. The tabletop it would definitely be going that way. Taking out the plague earns you the trust of the Anarchs, including the rather pouty damsel. You can help get rid of a ghoul who's lost her usefulness, bust up a gang deal, and even stop a kindred from being loan sharked by the Russian mob. Downtown has it all. Some quests even lead between zones. There's that murder site on the pier in Santa Monica. You can chase the murderer through downtown and beyond. The Dane though, let's get back on track. The Elizabeth Dane, the ship that came in missing its crew. It's primarily a stealth mission, and I'd encourage you by this point to have dumped many dots in stealth, or you'll have a very bad time getting in and out without being shot. You essentially weasel your way around the bow of the ship. If you're a Nosferatu, you can just turn invisible, which makes it so much easier. Getting to the cargo, you find the manifest as well, and that there was another item shipped with the sarcophagus that was unlabelled and missing. Thankfully, we see this thing is sealed shut too, the coffin that is. We take the police report and head back after essentially sneaking from one end of the ship to the other. It's the sneaking back that's the hard bit, and really there's only one route to get back without being seen. There's guides online for that. Getting back to LaCroix Tower, we find a slightly familiar face. Heather, the woman we saved who is clearly under the effects of a blood bond. See, when anyone drinks kindred blood, even other kindreds, they develop an emotional attachment to that person. This can get to the point of basically slavedom. It's not very moral at all. Heather agrees to go back to our apartment and get us a load of freebies. Cigarettes, armour, she at one point brings a guy into the flat and we need to get rid of him. But first, we head into the tower, go and see LaCroix. He's meeting with the current primogen of what seems to be a few different clans. He asks for a bullet point of what we saw and we tell him. He's happy with what we found and then tells us to help with yet another task. It's at this point we realise we're never going to get out of his pocket. The Malkavian primogen, Alistair Grout, has been unresponsive and we need to make a house call. It's one of the more interesting quests and areas in the game and will get a bit more expansion than what I've given to previous. We take a taxi out to the Hollywood Hills. When we arrive, Nines is there, weirdly, and he greets us, but he's acting all strange, his voice even sounds strange.
You should get out of here. This place is bad news. Pardon me.
I put this down to him getting hit by dementation, the Malkavian's unique discipline that makes people insane. Grout's mansion is also a type of asylum, though it seems many of his patients have sprung the nest. See, Grout is a rather old kindred with some sort of medical background. and as we explore his mansion, we'll find voice recordings of his detailing his muses and experiments whilst exploring his new condition. These recordings show a man quite detached from his own humanity. For instance, in one he laments on how insane asylums are out of fashion, and that's not a good thing.
Another unfortunate casualty to tide of time, insane asylums. I lament their loss not only as brokerage houses for the breadth and depth of human psychoses, but also I shall mourn the disappearance of that peculiar environment present only in an insane asylum.
Grout never actually met his own sire when he was sired. It seems he was working in an asylum, probably as a doctor, and one of the patients bit him and did all the blood swapping stuff. The orderlies took her away, locking her in the roaming pen, and she was ash come sunup. Grout was likely unconscious shortly after. It seems following this he'd been examining others with some unsavoury experiments.
Of course, there is no guarantee she would have been any more helpful than my current crop of test subjects, mewling wretches. Few could be called enthusiastic. Given the nature of the tests, I cannot expect the same fervor from all, but a modicum of cooperation would be appreciated. Animals. The one called John went so far as to gnaw off his arm and escape into the floorboards like some feral rodent.
He's also got a weird Dr. Freeze thing going on where his wife is ill and he's seemingly not told her about his own condition. He starts to succumb to the Malkavian madness, becoming more withdrawn as the days drone away. He eventually learns of greater vampire society, and from his language it seems to be speaking directly of the Camarilla. They even offered him a seat as their Malkavian primogen. He planned to use that to study his fellow kindred while he worked on a cure for the disease, as he calls it. As one enters deeper into his mansion, you'll start to figure out what his derangement was. He was likely chronically paranoid. He began to read the minds of kindred around him unknowingly, saying it was like he heard voices coming out from deep within them sometimes. He might have just been hearing voices as well. Malkavians hear the truth. That seems to be a running theme in these games. Their madness presents in that way. They're not actually mad, they just know a lot more than everyone else. But he hears random information, at other times dangerous facts, including about the prince. He doesn't elaborate on them. Grout believes the prince is dangerous, and he withdraws from kindred society. He knows he's making a bit of a gambit here and that they'll come looking for him. He secludes himself deep in the mansion and traps the place out of the Wazo. He had at some point also turned his wife and hidden her. I imagine it's this sleeping beauty type here. When we find Grout, we actually find his bed containing a staked body and some ashes. The mansion's been attacked by an exceptionally German vampire hunter. He's across the hall, so I can only pin Grout's death on 9s, given how shifty he was when we arrived. Grunfeld back over here has been hunting LaCroix and had come to kill Grout to draw him out. He's been beaten to the punch, however. We escape from the mansion, quite dramatically, running through the burning halls, and head straight to LaCroix, who we tell about the hunter. Then we tell him about 9s. While he considers his options and if he wants to start an all-out war with the Anarchs, he sends us to go and retrieve the sarcophagus, which has now been housed in a local museum. Flesh-eating Picha from the side quests also wants something from there too, so it's 2 hooks to go there. We dive straight in. It's like the Dane in terms of it being a big dungeon you need to sneak through, and you're told not to kill everyone there. They do introduce some security cameras which can be a real hassle. I imagine Nosferatu could just turn invisible to pass them, though obfuscate shouldn't work that way. And I later discovered if I used celerity it would slow them down too, so cool stuff. I could go super speed and just run around the cameras. When we get to the sarcophagus room, Beckett is there, and he's just as confused as us as to why the coffin's missing. He'd planned to give it the once over and came here to see it stolen. It does lead to one funny interaction with the prince where he complains about 9s being a backstabber and then asks if we need help getting the sarcophagus upstairs.
I have lit the fuse. If a war ignites, it's my head they will sharpen the pikes for. At least I can rest easy in knowing that you, my most promising attendant, has relieved me of one encumbrance tonight. Do you need assistance bringing the sarcophagus up to my office? Stolen? Stolen? How? Who would... Oh, Gary. Gary, you treasonous maggot. I should have anticipated your treachery, sewer rat.
Turns out the only people who could know where the thing was housed were the Nosferatu. We're going to be heading to Hollywood directly to find the rat munchers and where they've sold our special box. We'll need to meet with the Baron of Hollywood, Isaac, as our first step. But if you check in with Jack on the way to the taxi, we discover a potential motivation for LaCroix in the form of diablerie. Vampires, if they suck each other dry, can swallow the soul of a person, and with it all of their strength, powers, and sometimes even their consciousness takes over if it's done wrong. If LaCroix can pop open this magic box and there's a sleepy antediluvian in there, he can diablerize it and become the most powerful kindred alive and awake. It's a harebrained plan, given he could get possessed, but given how bad he's jonesing for it, I imagine Jack is dead on the money. Anyway, to the best area in the whole game, Hollywood.
LaCroix wants that coffin bad.
Where Santa Monica was 2 streets and downtown was a large sprawl, Hollywood consists of one long street with a variety of places to explore. As we pull in, a kindred spots us as an outsider and kindly requests we go and present ourselves to the Baron as we've entered his domain. A bit of an old tradition for anarchs, but then again, politicians love to hop the fence every 300 years. We take an alley to enter Isaac Abrams' building. He asks us what LaCroix wants with Hollywood, thinking we're just a soldier sent on his behalf. He'll help us find the Nosferatu, but before that, we owe the man a token of respect for protection in his domain. He's asked for a certain movie to be produced and wants us to go and pick it up. The only problem is the guy that he's getting it from is a little bit flighty. We head over to a nearby internet cafe to find a dead drop. En route, we get ambushed by someone we've forgotten from our human life. A friend, maybe? Could be a cousin, maybe a lover, who knows? If Samantha reveals we're still alive, it'd be a breach of the Masquerade. Some clans will have powers or high enough persuasion to convince her to stop or intimidate her away. Unfortunately, I just have to dome her and then go running into the sewers until the police give up on chase. It was either that or risk our secret getting out. The world is rough after all. I headed to the nearby 7-Eleven to also find out they sell weapons under the counter. Rough world.
I'm glad you asked that, bro.
Anyway, heading into the nearby internet cafe, I find the terminal logged in as Joseph K. and enter the password, Kafka. An email there stating to meet a guy behind the fast buck and we rush over. I assume this guy's here to sell us, well, Isaac, a snuff film, and he, again, is really flighty. He feels like he's being followed and watched by something, especially at night, and he's about to tell us where he stashed the tape, telling us to find the ginger swans, right as he gets eaten off screen.
What the? Oh, Christ!
This then opens Hollywood up quite massively. Ginger Swan could be anything, a movie like in the XXX store, maybe an exotic dancer who's in one of the 2 clubs here, maybe the name of a kindred we've not met yet. You are heavily encouraged to explore the whole zone. One kindred here, an exotic dancer named Vivi, is having problems with hunters sniffing around and wants you to take one out, leading to a very long-winded puzzle quest where you need to sabotage a strip club, make some of the windows break, smash their coin machine so no one has any pennies to throw at the strippers. Only then will they come out and you can kill the one in disguise. You might need to stop an aspiring writer from accidentally spilling the beans on Kindred Society and plug whoever's giving him the information. Maybe you help a Bruce Campbell stand-in in the graveyard.
Whoa there, Slick. Might want to think about knocking next time I damn near blew your hat off. Thought you might be a zombie.
By stopping the living dead escaping the local graveyard, while he heads off to grab a 6-pack. All fun quests, but none really leading you towards the Ginger Swan. The boardwalk quest from Santa Monica resolves here too. As you followed a mass murderer between each region, you eventually uncover he's getting revenge on his family's murders and succumbing to the beast while he's doing it. He's a bit like the Punisher in a fursuit. Either way, fun stuff. To get back onto the main page, if you head to Isaac and explain the current events, he'll tell you it's the name of a former celebrity buried in a nearby graveyard. I probably should have just gone to the quest giver to begin with. We can open her tomb and grab our tape. Heading back to Isaac, you can put it into the TV and he'll play it. It's definitely a snuff tape, but it involves a woman running through a house literally made of flesh and then being set upon by some sort of demon flesh beasts. We're going to be dealing with a Samisi, a clan popular in the Sabbat who practice fleshcraft. It's a power called vicissitude, and they're just as likely to turn you into a chair as kill you, literally. They're territorial and have minds so warped that some don't even register the concept of mercy. Isaac wants us to do some digging into the publisher's Death Mass Productions, but nobody in town wants to give up information, especially when we mention the cursed tape. Apparently, it's cursed now. We learn a passphrase and follow some instructions after bribing a shopkeeper, and we answer a mysterious telephone that calls in the middle of the street. Heading to a blood-soaked motel room, there's a key to a back room of the internet cafe, and it's clear there's some sort of minor conspiracy going on here, something supernatural and evil, and we'll see that firsthand in the cafe. Head to the back room and a fleshed beast will just jump scare you immediately. Turns out Deathmask Productions is running out of the top of this cafe, but they're not in league with the Tsimisi, as these flesh beasts are just attacking the spot en masse. They're fairly easy to take out, but it's a lot of combat. When we find an actual employee here, he tells us they didn't make the tape, they just found it in a creepy house nearby. He gets munched and we find a complete copy of the tape we can play with Isaac. After fighting our way out of this place, of course. The most interesting minor detail about these flesh beasts is they turn to ash when they die, suggesting they were made from vampires. Anyway, the full tape just adds more opening scenes, but Isaac recognises the house from the tape and plans to send us there. If we take too long, he'll just tell LaCroix we died and then march some of his own troops up there, which is very encouraging. He also warns us not to trust LaCroix, which I could have told you, he's so shifty. Isaac's a very good guy. Head to a section which comprises as one of the game's worst, the Hollywood Hills house. I should probably preface that with the first half of this area is really cool. You rock up to this lonely mansion in the hills, unable to see inside because the windows have been covered in bin bags. As soon as you open one of the doors to get in, you can see the walls are just covered in flesh. Most of the furniture here is made from the stuff too, and you're set upon by a ton of those monsters from earlier. You feel like you're smashing your way into some sort of eldritch abomination's resting place. I half expected to see a coffin in the basement, but instead you see the Tsimisi itself. This creature is the closest to a Dracula type you'd see in this setting. He'd purchased the tape to lure Camarilla vamps here to use them as fleshy building blocks. He's the reason the Nozzies have gone missing because he's flooding the sewers with his creations that he's made out of flesh Lego. He believes there's an ancient in the sarcophagus that LaCroix's obsessed with, and he's trying to stop the Camarilla from bringing us to an early apocalypse. This is where we get into the whole the Sabbat can be morally grey area. Stopping the apocalypse is a good thing. Targeting vampires specifically, not wanting to hurt humans, that too. But he's also flesh crafting abominations and killing innocents, so I can't really trust him. It's always best to err on the side of caution with these guys. With the plus patch, you can actually join them later on. After warding off the head honcho, you then head into the sewers for an absolute nightmare maze section that I would class as the worst part of the game. If I could skip it, I would. We have to fight our way through this maze that is flooded with mooks to get down to the Nozzies. The actual level design makes no sense in terms of where you're going. The only cool parts are the variety in the flesh-crafted monsters and some interesting puzzle pieces, like having to use the physics engine at one point. Otherwise, let's just skip it and jump below the sewers. Sewers in general, across the setting, are owned by Nosferatu. It's somewhere they can move about without risk of being seen, and they have an abundance of rats to feed off of as well. This isn't true in New York, where there's actually a sleeping ancient there that forms a giant flesh beast. But anyway, the warren here is full of those steaming blood pits, likely used to ghoulify various sewer animals into huge muscular weaponized forms. You'd expect to see many more Nosferatu down here, and I can only assume they're either out on surveillance, have been turned into flesh Lego, or there's a high chance many are just walking around invisible, laughing at us. There is a couple you can actually interact with though. Mitnick, a tech expert who wants us to help set up various nodes for their ShrekNet network, think Vampire Dark Web. There's also a Cleopatra down here, Imalia, who was once a top model, turned as a twisted joke knowing she'd be a vampire cursed with a monstrous appearance. It's a common gag Nosferatu play, and a lot of these Cleopatra become unhinged if they can't adapt to the change. She wants us to mess up another model who's been hogging the spotlight since she's gone. Gary, the Primogen, loves a gag, and when we enter his room there's a sort of Alice in Wonderland tea party going on here with a few corpses. He uses Obfuscate to taunt us from the shadows, and he actually despises us because we're a high appearance Toreador, the clan of pretty roses and artwork, not dead things as he calls us.
Behind you, boss. Boo! On guard, Toreador. You vainglorious, narcissistic poser. How I loathe that determination of your kind to belie your true nature with Paris fashions and pomp. You are a dead thing, a creature of the shadows. Start acting like one.
These two clans tend to hate each other, though some Toreador will see Nosferatu as especially beautiful. They're crazy in their own artistic way. He asks us why he should even deal with us, and when we tell him we sorted out the Tsimisi, he thanks us and tells us he knows where the sarcophagus is, but he's not going to say until we deal with the Kuei Jin in Chinatown. Kuei Jin are a different sort of vampire, technically. Not related to Cainites, but inaccurately described as kindred of the East. In their own orthodoxy, it's believed that all people have two souls, a Hun, or a higher soul, and a Po, the lower soul. Apologies if I butchered that last one. Think humanity versus the beast. When someone goes to hell, these souls are normally shredded for chi unless they bargain with a demon or take a second breath, raising as a living corpse that must consume chi to survive. They don't embrace like kindred do. Some harness chi by drinking blood, but many can adapt to just absorb it without drinking it. They are trying to achieve enlightenment, consolidating power within in that sort of ancient Chinese way. Their weaknesses are similar to normal vampires. The sun will cause them to decay rather than burn, and they may be weak to either wood or metal. Attacking their heart can disrupt their chi manipulation too. They're enigmas and inherently spiritual. Sometimes you can destroy them and they'll just possess something else. Gary wants us to meet with their leader Ming Zhao and find out where his missing Nosferatu is, get him back. Once he's back, Gary will give us the info we need for the prince. Now, if you've been checking your Haven emails, you might have a ton of side quests. I'm going to park them to keep a very long story short. If you've played this game before, please give me some stories of your experiences in the comments. I'd love to read them. You can even throw in your OC from the tabletop game. I don't know, that's up to you. But anyway, straight into Chinatown. Chinatown actually has a wealth of side quests, but it's quite bad at pushing you towards them. There's some interesting ones I actually missed on this playthrough, like helping an anime-esque schoolgirl fight a shark demon, which I wish I'd caught on camera and probably should have gone and re-recorded, but I didn't. This area as a whole is a bit dated. NPCs sound a bit funny. We'll just look past that as we go in.
Hey you! You want your fortune read?
Speaking to Ming Zhao, she seems to be exceptionally polite and kind, offering us tea when we enter and thanking us for making our presence known. She is smile effing us here, smiling to our face and plotting our imminent demise as we speak. She's quite open about telling us the similarities between Kindred and Kuei Jin and tries to make it sound all diplomatic, but she doesn't give us any specifics about their species. She tells us the Nosferatu agent wasn't lost by her hand, but if we go and speak to Wong Ho, a local businessman, he might have some information. Full spoilers here because I hate this woman, she is lying to us. Head to Wong Ho at the Red Dragon and you'll spot a few gangsters carrying a woman into an alleyway. Nothing to see there. This turns out to be Kiki, his daughter, and the people carrying her were a local street gang, the Tong. You can say some silly dialogue lines here. Kiki is being held at a local massage parlour and we need to get her back before he'll help us. Wong trusts Ming Zhao and after mentioning her name, that's where he decides we can help. I'll probably have to censor some of the characters walking in this area as they're too scantily clad for me to trust I can monetize this video. It's actually a fairly easy trek to sneak through this area by this point in the game. I say that and then walk right into a Tong's vision and suddenly the mission goes loud. I'd been upgrading celerity here, so slowing down time and swinging a sledgehammer at humans became the tactic. Luckily, breaking stealth doesn't aggro everyone on the map, so I take out this small room and then find Kiki barricaded into a closet. She gives the famous Star Wars line and then we tell her to head out. And my god is she ungrateful too. It turns out Wong was trying to clean up Chinatown here, but suddenly gangsters had been moving in quite a coordinated effort, suspiciously right as Ming Zhao and her cronies moved in. If we try and dot the quite obvious lines for this guy, he just doesn't listen. We can't really describe our nosy friend either, but if we head to a man named Zhao, who's a bit more connected, and we use Wong's name, we might be able to find him. We head to Zhao's warehouse and find him ominously staring off into the distance as we arrive. He has some idea that the leader of the Tong is involved in our missing Nosy. He quite happily tells us where to find him and gives us the door password for their nightclub, but by doing this he's made an enemy of the Tong, and the place is swarmed with goons. A few too many to take out an aged, unarmed businessman. Someone stitched us up here. You can save Zhao, but it's an incredibly tough fight if you're unprepared. Celerity gave me an edge here because I could dodge a lot of bullets, and I imagine magic or any of the combat powers really could do the same. I was basically only using melee for this, and only actually succeeded when I started using guns. It was a surprisingly fun bit of combat, but it does serve as a warning that combat is going to become more present and more important as we get towards our climax. Head into Glaze, the nightclub, do some lovely Kindred dancing, and if you dance for up to 5 minutes, you'll gain a humanity point. You can do this once in each nightclub if you're running low, and I'd realised this all too late. Perform some social engineering to go and meet their leader.
You don't look like someone he needs to talk to.
Strangely named Johnny. And when we head in, he threatens to kill us, but before things can get too spicy, a TV screen turns on behind him with someone telling him to shoot us to reveal we're a kindred. Someone knows way too much here. This is such a cool moment to reveal the room is being spied on, and the TV screen switching on is rather high tech given everything else we've seen. The man on the screen tells us to dispose of Johnny so we can talk properly, and it's all a bit high tech.
You had to kill him, didn't you? It's part of your code of survival, covering your tracks, so to speak. I also must protect my true identity. You may refer to me as the Mandarin.
This man is so dangerous, he calls himself the Mandarin and tells us to meet him at the Fu Syndicate building. You'll also need to either fight, sneak, or just super speed run your way out of the nightclub here. Don't worry, no one follows you out if you do. The Fu Syndicate section is so damn cool. Not only is someone researching Kindred, they've managed to already gather a wealth of info before we arrive, likely due to capturing Barnabas. It's not clear who they're working for, the Chinese, the FBI, but this is clearly a really organised outfit. They force us into this little gauntlet of tests with the premise of getting Barnabas out to us, the Nazi agent. The next room leads to an elevator trapping us, and it's really Delta Green. We're not just facing off against a street level hunter here, this is an organisation with power and financial backing. They've captured 2 kindred so far. They start by flooding the room with carbon monoxide to confirm we're living dead, and then switch on UV lights to try and burn us. That doesn't really work. The next test has us dodging lasers like a mouse running through a maze, and the room after there's a few spinning blades you need to shoot the power cells out of to actually get past. The Mandarin is planning on using this room to see the limits of our healing, but we turn it around on him. They then test their Van Helsing hypothesis, getting a lab tech to hold a crucifix up to us. This would stun certain kindred, not us, and if it was someone with true faith holding it, it would deal some real damage. You are so close, Mandarin, but science doesn't explain everything. He then sends a whole host of dragon breath shotgun wielders at us, and when we take them out, he plans to lead us into a room full of Tesla coils, which we kindly shoot out from the doorway. Seeing the limits of our cooperation, he plans to burn us, but we make the tanks explode on those flamethrowers and break out to his side of the reinforced glass. He doesn't want to surrender to us after dispatching his goons. I take him out and free Barnabas, who is an absolute combat monster.
Let me out! Get me out of here!
The two of us fight our way out of the Syndicate building, wiping their hard drives as we do. If you break into the Mandarin's office with high enough lockpicking, or no clip in, you can get into his personal computer, and his emails reveal who his employer was. Ming Zhao looking into kindred weaknesses, which is great in terms of the Masquerade, but awful she's such a slimy snake. The Kuei Jin are without a doubt on our enemies list. Gary calls us once Barnabas is free.
Do you have Prince Albert in the can?
Well, better let him go, boss.
Turns out that the sarcophagus was stolen by the Giovanni. Think mafia necromancers here. They're slightly separate, ideology-wise, to other kindred, dealing with necromancy and only siring those within their family. It's a little bit incestuous. Gary traded info to them, and they just happened to beat the prince to the punch. Rather than go to the prince first, we decide to head straight to Giovanni Mansion as they're having a big family reunion, and it's probably a good opportunity to sneak in. There's a few different ways in, both loud and quiet. On the quiet side, if you can convince one of the guests to give up their passes, we can just get past the guards on the door. There's a mini side quest here where we can get political and try to turn a few members of the Giovanni family against each other, all vying for the next embrace into being kindred. Or you can just sneak into their basement, fight off various zombies and ghouls, and eventually find where they're storing the sarcophagus. A couple of Kuei Jin twins are also here to steal the box, telling us our presence violates an agreement between our leaders. LaCroix, you dirty dog. That could be some damning collusion if it ever got out. Enjoy a rather tough boss fight and load up the box to go to LaCroix. It would be at this point I'd want to turn on the guy rather than deliver him the most powerful kindred steroid directly, but to each their own, and the plot needs trouble. We're going to get into the final act here. Everything from this point on tends to take place in some sort of instance dungeon. It is a bit of a difference from exploring these cool areas and doing all the side stuff. When we go to open the box, we realise it needs a rather complex mechanical key. Well, we don't realise that, but it's locked and we can't get in. When this is revealed and we have no information for our Napoleonic friend, he throws a tantrum.
Then there is no good reason why we shouldn't open it. Won't budge. Beckett, do you see any mechanism for the lid?
I haven't as yet had a chance to pore over it with my fine-tooth comb. I think I have one in my bag.
Why won't it open, Beckett? And you, I thought you said it looked as if it had been opened on the Dane. I want it open!
Hunters have kidnapped a certain human archaeologist who may know more. Beckett gives us that nugget. And we sneak through yet another compound, this time against highly armed people who will hand you your own ashy ass in a neat little box. Rescue a Hollywood toreador whom you'd saved from hunters in an earlier side quest, and then head on in looking for our archaeologist to come face to face with the hunter from Grout's mansion, Grunfeld Bach. He was laying a trap for LaCroix that we've managed to spring ourselves. You fight against him as he annoyingly uses True Faith and a crucifix to stun us and teleport around. If only the Mandarin saw this stuff. Taking out one of LaCroix's biggest enemies, we find the archaeologist and we ask all our questions about the box. He tells us that we need a key, and as we're about to take a lovely quiet stroll away, the gift that keeps on giving blows up his own compound.
Your time of judgment is here.
You're now on a timer to run and make a boat getaway. When we get back to LaCroix Tower, you see a ton of debris in front of it. Guards inside are all shot and murdered, and it turns out the Sabbat have attacked the prince directly with a bunch of shovelheads. Arguably a desperate attack to stop him from opening the box. It's time to do the exact same sort of mission we just did, only this time taking out the Sabbat, purely for the prince's own benefit. If you've got the plus patch on and low humanity, you could just side with them and skip this mission entirely. If you're watching for fun and have never played, I'm going to be doing the same. I'm not talking through this mission. You fight your way through an abandoned hotel in a game where combat really isn't too fun, in a setting where the combat has never really been the main focus either. It is exceptionally grueling. Your ghoul dies if you found out she was being stalked and never told her to stay at home, and you take out the Samisi in his war form, which is an interesting boss fight. He jumps between these blood puddles. When you leave the hotel, Ming Zhao appears to suck up to you, trying to get on our good side, and revealing LaCroix was the one to kill Grout, or at least him and Ming Zhao together. He'd used her shapeshifting abilities to plant the seed that Nines was responsible. Again explaining his weird, ghostly voice when we met him. Using our own trusted voice as his unwilling patsy. When we call him out for this, he sends us to go and find Nines, calling off the blood hunt so that all the vampires can live in peaceful coexistence against their one true enemy, the Kindred of the East. We head to the last round en route and get ambushed by Beckett, who just tells us whatever we do, don't open the box. Got that logged, my friend. We go to the last round and speak to the folks I've been secretly squirreling information to, given I no longer trust anyone in this city, besides probably Nines and Jack, maybe even Jeanette on a good day. Damsel tells us Nines is hiding out in the nearby Griffith Park, and we take a taxi over right in Pronto. Of course, actually getting to Nines, he continues to be the most cool, chill guy in the world, and he also talks some smack with us about LaCroix. In this specific game, and probably a load of tabletop settings, the Anarchs are probably the best folk for an easy life in LA. They don't seem to be corrupt in the video game, which can be a problem on the tabletop, but Nines is a cool guy. As we chat, someone sets a fire around us and we've sprung yet another trap. I think they wanted to kill us, but well, Nines says it best.
No, kid, you don't understand. The fire wasn't set to kill us. Come on, we gotta get to the tram.
Before we can move, the tram gets away and yeah.
That building until it comes back.
Werewolves, while exceptionally goofy looking in this game, are absolute monsters in the tabletop game. Unless you're an exception to the rule, typically it takes a group of kindred to take out one werewolf. That's the rule of thumb. They fight things much scarier than us on a daily basis, and their whole thing is trying to stop the world being corrupted by things like us. Notice how I didn't say people. We're talking twisted spirits, essentially the world essence itself, and Amazon, the company. They're eco-terrorists first and foremost, and kindred like us know we should stay away and hope they just forget about our existence. We need to loop this thing for a solid amount of time until the tram comes back. You can actually kill it with a secret method known as shutting a door on it, which requires powering said door and then luring it around without being turned into dinner for a Roomba. You can make it down the cable car quite peacefully, but when you do, Jack forces us into his car to break some exceptionally bad news. LaCroix has deemed us an enemy of the Camarilla and has called a blood hunt on us. Kindred from all over will be coming to kill us to claim said bounty, or just diabolise us for their own power. All rules are off when a blood hunt's in effect. He calls us a puppet of Ming Zhao, and after his plan of trying to kill us and Nines didn't work, this is his plan B, playing the victim. We need to sneak across Santa Monica here, avoiding the now Kindred flooded streets to get to a taxi driver who seems to also be a Kindred in some way, shape or form, but a trustworthy one.
I only recently made the acquaintance of Mr. Jack. He intrigues me very much. There are so few like him these nights, I think. But then, I only know what I hear from others about the Kindred of this city. It sounds as if there are many who seek to sway the children of Cain to their side.
From there, you need to decide which faction you're going to align yourself with, and there's a few different choices. You either go it alone, choose the Anarchs, choose LaCroix, weirdly, the Camarilla by ousting LaCroix using the Tremere Primogen, the Sabbat, as awful as that sounds, or the worst option, trying to side with the Kuei Jin. The Anarchs are likely the best option in this canon. All the endings play out the same way, just with slight variations. As in, the gameplay plays out, the actual finale is different. If you go with the Anarchs, you get this lovely powwow with them where you realise Nines is still alive. We then need to take out Ming and LaCroix to bring order back to everything. All endings have this as a requirement unless you side with either Ming or LaCroix, and then you only have to take one of them out. Ming has the key to the coffin, so you need to fight her first, and then you go through a variety of combat dungeons that seem a bit subpar compared to the first half of the game. We've basically jumped from playing Vampire to playing an FPS action game with little bearing for your build or your choices earlier. If you're not combat focused, you will just have a rough time. I get they wanted some climactic finish, but there's so many issues with such a drastic change in the quality and overall spirit of the gameplay. If you missed the hints it was going to be all combat, you probably wouldn't have built that way, and it can be horrid. Ming is an annoying boss fight you've likely hemorrhaged resources fighting through a dungeon to get to, and I'd argue she's the toughest fight in the game given her silly health pool. If you didn't stock up ahead of this, it's awful. She can make sluggy clones of herself and tank all your bullets. LaCroix's section is a bit more fun, fighting your way up his ivory tower, dealing with his possessed goon as he taunts us, and then having to fight the sheriff, who seems to be of a clan from the Dark Ages rulebook, which is a format of VTM I never played. You have to use these spotlights to take him to ground, where you eventually wail on him with his own sword, looking more like a buster blade in our hands. The endings then tend to play out after you've beaten LaCroix and go in a few different directions. If you go it alone, LaCroix opens the box and it turns out Jack and the taxi driver had swapped the body for a ton of Semtex, restoring balance to the Force as we fade away into obscurity. It's implied through some dialogue and just mysteriousness that the taxi driver is Cain himself. The Anarch ending is identical, but we join them after the bomb goes off. If you side with LaCroix, you can join him in opening the box, becoming an atomized stain on the LA skyline. If the Camis oust him, the box is stored away forever in some warehouse, with them safely tucking away a potential apocalypse in their minds. It's assumed the Tremere Primogen becomes the new prince whenever LaCroix dies. For the Sabbat, they drop the box into the ocean, not wanting to bring about the apocalypse, and again, seemingly a little bit more level-headed than the Camarilla gave him credit for. They just told us they'd want the box to eat it. It's fairly nuanced and a nice twist rather than just opening the box and repeating LaCroix's ending. If you side with Ming, and I apologise I didn't record this, she straps you to the box and drops you into the ocean with it, because she's a total POS. Anyway, that about wraps up this game, so let's just conclude. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines will forever be one of my favourites. Sure, it's clunky, buggy at times, and combat heavy in places it shouldn't be, but it provides me the experience of playing VTM without having to get a load of people together and balance schedules and write up a new character. You feel like the vampire you're playing in this game. It feels like the tabletop game for so much of its runtime, and whether it's the characters, the setting, or even just the wackiness parts of it, it's so entertaining and unique, and it sheds light on both a game and genre I'm a massive fan of. I've yet to find a game pull me in as far RPG wise, besides like Disco Elysium and Baldur's Gate 3, which are empirically much better gaming experiences to the average player. Bloodlines captures the essence of the World of Darkness in a way few adaptations ever have, a setting that at one point was bigger than D&D and has now faded somewhat into obscurity. If you liked watching Blade, you'll like this game. If you like gritty political drama where you don't know who to trust and you're not sure if you're making that right decision that isn't going to bite you in the bum later down the line, you'd like this game. 18 years later, Bloodlines still feels unique. It's not just a cult classic, it's been kept alive by its players. It's a jumbled mess, but it's still so fun to play. Something doesn't have to be perfect mechanically to be an amazing game. It's why fans still patch it, still replay it, and still argue over which ending is canon or which faction is the best one to side with. At the end of the night, you liked that, didn't you? It puts player choice front and centre in a way that a lot of games forget to in the genre. Bone Apple Teeth. Thank you for watching. Please, if you enjoyed the video or like my content, do me a favour and interact with the video in some way. Let me know what you think of the game, what you want me to cover next, and get ready for when I cover Bloodlines 2 as soon as possible. I have literally booked a week off work for it. Over and out, Smooth Brains.